A lot of people are complaining about Dan Lanning and the Oregon Ducks. Why is that? I have an answer. Locked on Big Ten starts right now.
You are Locked On Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Big Ten. I'm Craig Sheeman, 40 years as a sports talk show host and play-by-play announcer, and I want to thank you for making us your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hit that free subscribe button so you never miss an episode, and you can take care of that right now while you're watching. All right, today's episode is brought to you by Nissan and the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Stay with us for the Armada Team of the Week later on in the episode. All right, so why is everybody mad at Dan Lanning and the Ducks? Plus, is streaming Ohio State football games over with? Somebody's trying to do it legally. We'll tell you what that's all about. Also, there was an argument about the Ohio State with the NHL game they had in their stadium. Plus, I got a funny Purdue basketball story for you. All that coming up at our Big Ten Classics and live action. But everybody seems to be mad at the Oregon Ducks and Dan Lanning, except Oregon fans. They love Dan Lanning. They love their Ducks. After all, they're the reigning Big Ten champions. But because they lost handily to that buzzsaw called Ohio State at the wrong time in the playoffs, the Buckeyes are now the bar. That's the bar to reach. Got to catch the Buckeyes at all costs. And other coaches are mad at Lanning and the Ducks and accusing him of tampering with their players and throwing huge wads of money for name, image, and likeness at their players, trying to entice them into the transfer portal. Everybody's doing it. So why all the heat on Dan Lanning? Because some coaches are calling him out by name. That's a little unusual. So who, you ask? Well, let me go to an older story and then a newer one, because you probably heard about the one in January where Boise State offensive coordinator and former NFL head coach Dirk Cutter said that as soon as Boise's season ended against Penn State in the college football playoffs, players were contacted by the Ducks. And it said that he said the players were not even in the transfer portal yet. And if that was the case, then that would be tampering. Tampering is against NCAA rules. But as every coach who has had their own players tampered with or outright poached away, they'll all tell you the NCAA does nothing about it. Nothing. It's the wild, wild west out there. So you kind of got to do it in order to survive. Cutter pointed out that one particular player was flat out offered $700,000 in name, image, and likeness from Oregon specifically. Boise State's entire nil collective is just $2 million. They got to spread that out over the whole team. They're on Oregon and Boise are on different planets as far as money available for name, image, and likeness. Later, Boise State head coach Spencer Danielson said at least 13 of his players on his team had been illegally recruited by Power 4 teams before the winter portal opened. Now, not all of them were Oregon, but he did mention that many players had been contacted by other teams. So knowing that, it's hard to single out Oregon because, again, that's anecdotal evidence that, everybody is doing it out there. And if everybody's doing it, whether ethical or not, it seems to be the new way of doing business in big boy college football. Do it or die. Adapt or die. Do it or annually fail and fall behind Ohio State, for example. It's Dan Lanning's job to win games at Oregon. And it's his job to be better than Ohio State. That's what he's got to do. So, no, our purpose here, don't get me wrong, the purpose on today's podcast is not to single out Dan Lanning and the Oregon Ducks. We like Dan Lanning. We like the Oregon Ducks. I think they're a fun program to watch. I think they're a fun program to talk about. I got nothing but good things to say. We think they're a fresh of breath air and a great addition to the Big Ten. I can't be more clear about that. But since this Boise story, now another story from Bucknuts, covers the Buckeyes. Bucknuts reporter said that Oregon has contacted a half a dozen Buckeyes players and allegedly offered double market value to transfer to Oregon. That's a half a dozen. That's a lot from the one team you're trying to catch. Kind of feels like if you can't beat them, join them or bring them to you or something like that. I don't know. We don't have any other corroboration on this particular story. Again, this is just from Bucknuts that they're reporting it. And, it's one thing to offer a kid big money to take him from a school with a tiny name, image, and likeness program. It's another to go after the team that you're trying to catch. That's one way or other. That's a statement. And it's one of the teams that has just as much money as you do, which is ironic. If they're throwing double market value at Ohio State players. And because of that, if that's true, well, one of two things has to be true here. If this actually happened or not, going after Ohio State players and offering double the money. Either Ohio State has quietly matched that money in a bidding war, or the accusations aren't true. I mean, how many big name kids left Ohio State to go to Oregon this winter? None that I can recall, right? Don't you think at least one kid would have said, hey, double the money? I'm coming. None that I can recall here this offseason. So one thing is for certain, Dan Lanning and the Ducks, they're rolling right now. And there was a reason that he didn't even flinch when Nick Saban retired at Alabama and that job opened up. He said, I'm not going there. A lot of people speculated right away. Says he's got everything he needs to be successful right where he's at right now. Oregon is top 5 across the board in recruiting high school kids, top 5 recruiting in the transfer portal, top 5 name, image, and likeness money collected. That's why the Ducks are the number one ranked team in the country for the majority of this last season. They're rolling, and he knew it going into the season. And I think he's still got it rolling. I think Oregon's going to be good for a long time. By the way, the Ducks open spring practice on March 14th. That is a week from Friday. Their spring game, and they are having a spring game, is Saturday, April 26th. That's at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 o'clock Pacific. That's going to air on the Big Ten Network. I will be watching it. I absolutely will. A lot of eyes are going to be on that UCLA transfer quarterback, Dante Moore. He transferred over a year ago, but with Dylan Gabriel, he had to wait his turn and trying to fill the big shoes of Dylan Gabriel and Bo Nix before him. All these quarterbacks have success at Oregon. He's next man up, Dante Moore. I think we're going to enjoy watching him play. We'll also get to see junior safety and Purdue transfer Dylan Thieneman in an Oregon uniform. And I don't think he's getting talked about enough. I've talked about him quite a bit on this podcast. I thought he was one of the best acquisitions in the country in the transfer portal, bar none. He's a phenomenal player. The first great two first years at Purdue. Anyway, Ducks fans, what do you think when you hear all this stuff? I would love to hear from you. Hit me up on the comment section. Oh, and by the way, got another note for you that is related to Oregon. Remember when Oregon beat Ohio State by 1 point in the regular season at Autzen Stadium? That was where Dan Lanning outwitted everybody with the rules loophole, where he purposely put 12 men on the field defensively as the ball was snapped by the Buckeyes with 10 seconds to go. It was a live ball foul, so the 4 seconds that ran off the clock, they didn't put it back on. Ultimately, that cost the Buckeyes the game and gave the Oregon Ducks the win, locked it up. Well, the NCAA Rules Committee has proposed a change in the past couple of days that would give the offense in that situation the option of resetting the clock in the last 2 minutes of either half if the defense has too many men on the field. It's the Dan Lanning rule. It hasn't been passed yet. It has been proposed by the Rules Committee. This proposal has been sent to all the schools, and the NCAA Rules Oversight Panel will make a final decision on the proposal in April. Anyway, love your comments on that too. Hit me up. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss a single episode of Locked On Big Ten, and follow Locked On Big Ten for free wherever you get your podcast. That way you'll get the latest episode of Locked On Big Ten as soon as it becomes available each day. And also share, like, and follow at will. And don't forget our website, talkbig10.com. That's the number 10, talkbig10.com. All of our podcasts go there, and you can buy merchandise from your favorite school. If you're an Oregon Ducks fan, boom, get an Oregon Ducks shirt, pennant, hat, all that stuff right there while you're watching our podcast. Very easy, very convenient. Hopefully you'll check that out as well. All right. A lot to do here. First of all, why did a Penn State quarterback, a former quarterback, quit a coaching job? We got some details on that. That's coming up. And is streaming of Buckeye games over with? There's a bill in the legislature in the state of Ohio. I'm going to tell you about it. Plus, the Buckeyes apparently fought with the NHL over the word "the." I'll explain. And a Purdue basketball player just checked himself in the game without Matt Painter knowing or telling him to. It's a hilarious story. Plus, we'll have our Big Ten Classics and live action. All that coming up right here on Locked On Big Ten. I'll tell you about Nissan, the Armada Team of the Week, brought to you by our friends at Nissan and the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Each week, our Locked On College basketball experts are picking one team that stands apart, from top-seeded stars to the unexpected upsets. These guys showcase their strength and sheer power needed to push their team forward. And this week's Armada and clear-cut Team of the Week, Michigan State Spartans. It's got to be the Michigan State Spartans, right? They are rolling. It's March. Tom Izzo's Spartans are always playing their best basketball of the year this time of year, from the buzzer beater against Maryland last week, recent win against state rival Michigan. Michigan State is on a roll. So when it comes to the Nissan Armada, they say go forth and conquer. And that's exactly what the Michigan State Spartans have done thus far. It's clear that our Team of the Week is out here ready to conquer the road ahead with confidence, just like you can in the all-new Nissan Armada or any of the Nissan's outstanding vehicles. Take the Nissan Armada, Rogue, or Pathfinder and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. I want to thank everybody for making Locked On Big Ten your first listen each and every day, especially you everydayers out there. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Meanwhile, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below so you never miss an episode, and share and follow it like Locked On Big Ten, your team every day. And check out our website, talkbig10.com, podcasts and merchandise, all right there at your fingertips for your convenience. All right. In Ohio State, not Ohio State Buckeyes, but a state of Ohio senator, Bill DeMora. He introduced a Senate bill, Senate Bill 9 in the state of Ohio. And that would ban state universities from signing media deals that allowed exclusive streaming of college football games in the future. The bill would also give students access for free to university games. Apparently, he was frustrated that he had to watch the Buckeyes play Purdue in 2023 on Peacock, and also the 2024 game against Michigan State. He was upset that he had to watch that on a streaming service. He said, quote, "It was the first time in 20 years that I could not watch an Ohio State game on a regular channel," unquote. He continued to say, quote, "I refuse to pay all these streaming networks to watch Ohio State and other sports. Streaming television is not good for sports," unquote. Well, Bill, many will share your frustration, but streaming sports is not going away, and you're not going to be able to legislate it away either. This is an uphill battle that you just cannot win. It's just the way it is. I predict one day we're going to have the Super Bowl. It's going to be streamed. It's going to happen in my lifetime. No question about it. Everything. Got another Buckeyes story for you. You know, the Red Wings and the Blue Jackets, they played that outdoor hockey game at Ohio Stadium. And this is what the NHL does its stadium series. And by all accounts, it was great. The event was great. The visuals were fantastic. We included some nice pictures in our Tuesday tweets, some overhead shots that were really cool. Blue Jackets won the game, by the way, 5-3 in front of 95,000 fans. So you beat a team from Michigan. A lot of people were happy about that in Ohio. But before the game, the Buckeyes and the NHL got a little bit of a fight over the word "the," as in the Ohio State. The NHL, I'm saying the now, the NHL likes to call its outdoor series the Stadium Series. Ohio State didn't like that. And so there was some back and forth. Crazy, right? Well, that all worked out. So everything's fine. But stuff behind the scenes that goes on. It's crazy, right? Now, I want to follow up here on an interesting story about former Penn State quarterback Matt McGloin. He resigned as a Lackawanna County commissioner. That's what he was doing these days, to take a job coaching with Bill O'Brien at Boston College. Bill O'Brien with former ties to Penn State as well. But then he took this coaching job as an assistant, and then he quit that job after 2 days. He said he had to make a rush decision on the job, didn't really think it through a lot. And he said, because he wasn't given a lot of time, he got there, he had second thoughts about the whole thing not being best for his family at the time. I guess he's got kids. He said all of a sudden his kids would be, well, first of all, he would be away from them from a long time, because once you start coaching, it's a grinder of a job, right? Especially if you got to go to another city to do it. And he said he would have to uproot his kids from the only house they've ever known, and that doing so would not be in their best interest. So he resigned. Anyway, that was the story behind the story with that. Now, got a funny story from Purdue basketball. I thought this was hilarious. So they had their home finale against Rutgers this past week. And apparently about a minute into the game, Miles Colvin, he checked himself into the Boilermaker lineup on the floor. In for CJ Cox on his own, without Coach Matt Painter's permission on the whole thing. And then in the minute he was in there, he even jacked up a three. Not part of the game plan, but hey, shooters shoot, right? So Cox is standing there on the sideline, and Painter notices he's not on the floor, and the play is going on. And Painter's like, dude, are you hurt? Did you take yourself out? No, coach, I'm good. And you ask all of his assistant coaches up and down the bench, is Cox hurt? What happened? Who took him out? Nothing. So 33 seconds later, Painter took Colvin out and replaced him with starting guard CJ Cox right back into the lineup, who Colvin had checked in for. So what really happened here? Well, first of all, the freshman Cox had just picked up a foul. So he's a freshman. He picks up a foul early on. Maybe he thinks coach is upset. He comes up because he sees he's being substituted for. And apparently Colvin thought he had heard his name get in there, and he jumped in there like that. Clearly a miscommunication. So anyway, the Boilers won the game easily, 100-71. So Matt Painter was in a humorous mood about it afterward. He wasn't at the time, but that's a funny story. Kid just checked himself into the game, even though the coach didn't tell him to. I thought it was hilarious. We got some Big Ten basketball tonight here on Thursday night. Michigan State is at Iowa. And of course, lots at stake here. We're literally taping this podcast as Michigan is playing Maryland. So if Maryland won, the Michigan State's Big Ten regular season champs. If not, Michigan State can do it by winning tonight against Iowa. Women's tournament, Oregon will take on Indiana at noon today, noon Eastern, 9 o'clock Pacific. If you're an Oregon Ducks women's basketball fan, that'll be on the Big Ten Network. Michigan will take on Washington about 25 minutes after that game is over. And then later on at 6:30 Eastern, 3:30 Pacific, Illinois will take on Nebraska. And then Michigan State will take on whoever won the Iowa-Wisconsin game, which also is going on as we are taping this podcast here for you for your big Thursday. Anyway, would love your comments on our earlier conversation about the Oregon Ducks, name, image, and likeness, and transfer portal and poaching, or anything that you have on your mind regarding that. Love to hear from you. Comments always welcome right there on YouTube if that's how you're checking us out. So we always do appreciate that. In the meantime, we always have our nightly features coming up. Since it's a Thursday, we'll look ahead to the weekend of the Big Ten Network with Big Ten Classics and mostly Big Ten live action this time around for this weekend. A lot of, like I said, women's basketball Big Ten tournament going on, among other things. Last weekend of the regular season, we will get to all of that. That's coming up in 1 minute right here on Locked On Big Ten. All right, back here on Locked On Big Ten. Let's do it. Our weekly features, our nightly features. You know, if you're new to the program, we always have Monday, our top 10 Big Ten observations for the weekend. Tuesdays, we do Tuesday tweets. Wednesdays, power rankings. Thursdays, Big Ten classics and live action. And then Friday, tomorrow, we'll make our predictions for the basketball games over the weekend. I'm going to put this on full screen in case you are audio only. I'll describe it to you, what's going on here in detail. We don't put everything on the Big Ten Network schedule, just the things we want to highlight here. We'll start it off with Friday, March 7th. We got Big Ten Live for the women. The women's basketball pregame. Get ready for more Big Ten women's tournament, Big Ten tournament. So we'll have all the news and updates from coaches around the league. And then at 12 noon Eastern, these are all Eastern times, the women's basketball tournament, the quarterfinal, yet to be determined opponent versus USC. USC getting in there with the buys. And so they'll start out on Friday. Wonderful. Juju Watkins. What a beautiful, awesome season that she's had. Meanwhile, at 2:30 Eastern, the second quarterfinal, that will involve the Maryland Terps against an opponent to be determined. And then at 6 o'clock, more round 2, if you will, of the women's basketball pregame, leading into a 6:30 tip-off of the third Big Ten tournament quarterfinal for the women. That will involve UCLA versus an opponent to be determined. UCLA, number 1 much of the season, right? And at 9 o'clock, we got more. The other quarterfinal, we do know that'll involve the Ohio State Buckeyes, who also got a bye to this point as well. So as that continues, that rolls us into the weekend where we're just going back and forth between men's and women's basketball and some other events as well. So Saturday, March 8th, and we'll even throw in some wrestling because that's going on too. At 11 a.m. Eastern, Big Ten wrestling, Big Ten tournament at Northwestern. 3 o'clock, Big Ten women's basketball semifinal, number 1. Obviously, we don't know who's going to be playing in that. And then the second semifinal at 5:30 Eastern. And 8 o'clock, back to wrestling, Big Ten semifinals for the Big Ten tournament. And again, this is at Northwestern. Then we turn the page to Sunday. Sunday, 12th, we'll pick it up here at 12:30. Another Big Ten Live, Big Ten basketball tip-off show. Getting ready for men's basketball on Sunday. Minnesota at Rutgers. That's at 1 o'clock Eastern. At 3 o'clock Eastern, we've got Oregon at Washington. So that's a West Coaster. So 1 o'clock Eastern, that will be at 10 o'clock Pacific time. That's right. Did math, subtracted 3. 10 o'clock in the morning on Sunday. And then more Big Ten Live wrestling pregame. Getting to be a big deal at this point. And then the Big Ten championships at Northwestern for Big Ten wrestling. The women's basketball final is on another network, as they say. Anyway, that is it. Our Big Ten classics and live action for the weekend to help you plan that out a little bit here. Lots going on. Very busy time of year. And got you covered with all of that. In the meantime, many ways for you to interact with this podcast at Twitter or X at Talk Big Ten. If you're on video, you can see the crawl right there at Talk Big Ten. Don't forget Tuesday tweets. You tweet me something, and I'll, if it's good, I'll put it on Tuesday's podcast. We got our website, talkbig10.com, the number 10, also on the crawl if you're on video only, and or if you're on video. You can check that out where all of our podcasts go, and you can get merchandise from your favorite Big Ten school. Plus, be sure to subscribe for free. Real quick, you just click it. It takes 1 second. It's always free, and that way you never miss an episode of Locked On Big Ten. And you can follow this podcast on your favorite podcast app and get the latest episode of Locked On Big Ten literally as soon as it becomes available each and every day. Invite you to check out a second listen. Go back and check out yesterday's podcast if you missed it, or a second listen with our friends on Locked On College Basketball with Isaac Shade and Andy Patton. These guys know their hoops. Don't wait anymore. Jump in there. It's March. It's go time. Be the most informed college basketball fan that you know right now. Find Locked On College Basketball on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. All right, we got a lot going on. Dabo Sweetie was a little critical of Matt Rule and his decision not to do spring football. We're going to look into that. We're going to talk some football tomorrow, more basketball as well, and we'll have our basketball picks going into the weekend. That's what we're going to do on our Friday show. Hopefully you'll join us. Hopefully you will tell friends about us that we are here each and every day. We are the only Big Ten podcast where that is, first of all, video and audio a Big Ten podcast that offers Big Ten news on all the schools, plus analysis and opinion on all of it. All that under one umbrella right here on Locked On Big Ten. Tell your friends we're here each and every day. And thank you for joining us. Can't wait till we talk again next time. I'm Craig Sheeman for Locked On Big Ten.